Hey everybody, so here is the jelly juice that I made a couple days ago, and this is actually in the refrigerator. The reason why there's foam on the top is because I mixed everything on the top so that way it goes to the underneath the brine, and there was no mold or anything. It's just a nice flat kind of consistency. It wasn't like rising so much because I didn't put that much of the cabbage in there because there was half of it, not half, but I have a seeded starter that was in there, and then I added just a little bit of cabbage, enough to give it new cabbage, new life, I guess. And then the lactobacillus that was already in there from the seed then fermented it faster. And I didn't use any kind of tap water left out. I just did it straight from the tap. I didn't leave it out for 24 hours because some of you have chlorine that I noticed that when I get it, I put the tap water in my huge container, and then I let it sit out, but it really doesn't. I mean, it sits out, but not really. I mean, it does because, of course, it's sitting out. But as soon as I open the spigot, I think I smell just a little bit of chlorine, and then it disappears. So I'm not worried about chlorine. I'm not worried about fluoridation. I'm not worried about anything because those are all minerals. You realize that chlorine is part of it's chloride. Sodium chloride is salt. Chlorine is just a segment or a factor of salt. So there really isn't anything that we should be scared of when it comes to the different elements that they may fortify in the water to kill off any potential bacteria that's harmful on immunocompromised bodies. Okay? So, but I don't like the smell of chlorine, so when I first take the water from the sink, or I take the water from my container and I smell just a little whiff of the chlorine, and then I go back with my nose over it again, I don't smell anymore. So the chlorine just actually disappears as far as the smell, and then everything is fine. Okay? And so then when you make the J juice with just tap water, all the minerals are already in the pink Himalayan salt, and there's minerals in your tap water. So it's not like because you're not supposed to avoid minerals. And so it's just like this is the chemical process. It's not going to harm it or anything. So tap water is perfectly fine. If you don't like the smell of chlorine, then no big deal. When you drink it straight out of the tap water, you just let it sit out for like a minute, okay? And then the chlorine will dissipate off. But when you actually make the J juice, you're not going to smell any chlorine because it's already going through a chemical process, so it's perfectly fine. Here's the thing. I don't love the fact that some people are in my group that are still promoting the fear around GMO and saying that the system is poisoning and weaponizing stuff. And I realize that some of you are still going to come from that perspective. And so sometimes I'll unfollow people, but I don't know how it is that my Facebook will still bring up posts from people who I've unfollowed. And so when I see somebody that's in my group that's still promoting fear around GMO and saying that the government's trying to kill people and harm them through the food supply and processed foods is so horrible when it really isn't, I actually will take them out of the group and I will block them on my Facebook because I don't think they're a good representation of the protocol, and I don't think they should be on the protocol. I mean, they will if they want to. But before I block somebody or take them out of the group, I'll actually comment. And I'm not trolling them, okay? What I say is, well, you've been part of my group, you've been part of my Facebook, you have my book, and yet you're still promoting the fear around GMO and still promoting the fear around that you're saying that the government and corporations are trying to kill us and all that stuff. And that is not so, because if that were the case, then we'd all be dead. So I want to let you know that today, what I ate today, and it's very minimal because I'm really not that super hungry, but I finally ate around 12 today. And I had a little bit of coffee, and I did all my work this morning. And you saw all my work that I did this morning. I loaded like YouTube full of videos that I did way back when I made the juicy recipe. So I've been uploading like 10, 15 videos on YouTube, and then doing videos today. But what I ate was I took some bacon, I fried it up. Now this is not on the protocol, just so you know, but I'm at a point where I can actually derive benefit from the food supply processed food, meats, and vegetables, and my J juice. And I'm going to have a very well-balanced body. So those of you that are starting J juice, you need to stay on the protocol because you're not to that point yet. But I'm showing you the end result that when you finally do get your body well-balanced, you'll be able to reintroduce foods back in your diet and you'll actually derive benefit and you won't have to play the avoidance game. So what I had today was a little bit of bacon. I had some potatoes and some onions, and that's not on the protocol either. What else? Potatoes, onions, and I used the bacon grease to fry everything up. And then I didn't even eat all of it. I gave some to my dog. And then I had about maybe 10 barbecue chips, and then a little bit of whipped cream, and then a whole banana. And I left most of the whipped cream and put it back in the fridge. So I had a little bit of everything. I had a little bit of milk, I have fruit. I'm having my juice, and I had a little bit of meat, and I had potatoes, and it has a little bit of onions. And that is a very diverse minerals and fats and proteins and electrolytes and carbs and sugars. And that is what constitutes the human body. It's all of that. But if you are over mineralized and you have a major imbalance, then you have to bring in the right type of elements, the right formula to then address the weaknesses in your body and to then release the excess minerals that are housed in your poop, okay, as well as any other parasites and any excess virus programming that you've been exposed to ever since you were born and even prior. And so that's the whole point of J juice, is you're releasing the excess and then fixing the weaknesses. And then finally, at some point after you've gone through the healing process and the pain and all of that stuff, then you're going to be able to reintroduce foods back in your diet. Okay. So, the J juice, and it's so juicy because we're not trying to make sauerkraut. Okay. So we're understanding that everything is an elemental composition. Everything is basically minerals, compound elements. Okay. And you may have an overabundance and you may need to unstagnate or destagnate your stagnated lymphatic system. Because that's what it really comes down to, is a lot of you have a very stagnant lymphatic system. And so you are housing excess information that your body doesn't need. And then it's causing glitches and anomalies. And so when I see somebody coming through on my newsfeed that I've totally unfollowed, but I don't know how the hell it comes through still, and I see them totally inducing fear around GMO, and I know they have the book, I know they're part of my group, and they've been sort of active on my Facebook, but yet they're just inducing fear about genetically modified, because genetically modified is not poisonous. GMO is just genetically modified, no difference. Like, you are a whole person, and we found that mutations could actually strengthen you, but too many mutations can cause death. But when you have a fruit or a vegetable that's still viable, and it's still a fruit or vegetable, is not dead or rotting, then all it is just a different form of the same fruit with a little extra added minerals that give it a little bit of a different or a different physical appearance. And that's it. Okay? So genetically modified is not something to be afraid of. It's like, you are genetically modified. Does that make you a less of a person that you be genetically modified? No. Every time you go through a mutation because you're adapting to your environment, you're basically genetically modified. That doesn't mean that you're poisonous and that you're horrible. No. It just means that you need to strengthen your weaknesses so that way you're not being subject to having the viruses capitalize on your weaknesses and take over the programming of your body. Okay, so genetically modified is not bad. The government is not weaponizing the food supply. The corporations are not weaponizing the food supply. We have watchdog agencies. So yeah, I'm going to be a bit more, I don't say harsh, but I'm going to make, executive decisions to see who I really want in my group. Because when you have the book, you should not be afraid of anything. When you have the book and you understand what this actually entails, and you actually apply it, you're going to see a difference. You're going to see finally, obesity get addressed. You're going to see your diabetes get addressed. You're going to see so many different things get addressed. And if you are promoting your health protocols without mentioning J juice the the recipe of J juice. You don't have to say J juice because you know it's all loaded with a bunch of baggage. And if you're afraid to deal with J juice backlash, but you're not even promoting the ingredients of J juice, but you're then promoting how beautiful you are because you got rid of the sugar and the carbs. That's deceptive. Just simply avoiding sugars and carbs is like not going to give somebody the kind of healing that they deserve. And I seen one of you do that today. You mentioned how you look great from avoiding the sugar and the carbs from 2016 to now 2019, but you never mentioned the ingredients of J juice. I'm not asking you to promote me. I'm not asking you to say, hey, go and try to sell J juice to all of your friends, but at least be honest with what has contributed to your healing process. Because J juice we've cornered the market. And if you can't even mention the ingredients of J juice, then what are you doing? You're deceiving everybody saying that, oh yeah, I just avoided sugar and carbs. Because there are some people out there that have gone through different diets. They've gone to health spas where these health spas said, you can't eat sugar, you can't eat carbs, you can't eat processed foods. And then they go and you have to work out. And so they go and work out. They play this discrimination game. And guess what? They can't sustain it because guess what? They didn't change their biochemistry. So you as a person who knows about J juice and you're not promoting it, but you're promoting another protocol like avoiding sugar and carbs, you're being deceptive. You're totally taking your friends down a very false path that I'm really ashamed that you do that. And that's not a representation of J juice at all. Because this is what contributed to the beautiful healing that you have. The difference in your before and after picture is not because you avoided sugar and carbs. People have superficially done things temporarily when they avoid sugar and carbs, but that is not a reality. You need carbs and you need sugar. Why would you want to put something like that out there? And I'm not going to say the person, I know who she is, and she's on here right now watching me. I'm not going to she knows who she is. Do I want to say it? I want to say it, but Gloria. I'll just say Gloria. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say her full name. I'll say Gloria. You know who you are. Because I've liked your post and I saw it. And yeah, you mentioned salt, but you never mentioned probiotics or lactobacillus. You never mentioned cabbage or kale. But you're all about the detox, quote unquote detox. J juice is not a detox, Gloria. J juice is not a detox. Detox is when you're putting together a bunch of negative elements to try to rid of the body of other negative elements, but then really you're weakening the body because you're not actually balancing the body correctly with the right elements. So then you're overdoing it and creating more imbalances because you haven't put the right ingredients together. What are the right ingredients? Well, it is the fermentation, the lactobacillus, the lactic acid, the electrolytes with the pink salt, and then the macro and micronutrition from the cabbage and kale. Do you know how much minerals and nutrients, that are in the cabbage and kale? I know, Gloria, you still love me, but I think you need to change your post and put at least cabbage, water, and salt and lactobacillus so you're not bringing your friends down a path that doesn't make sense. If you're going to promote your healing process, give everybody the opportunity to have the right formula. Don't put out something that's not true. You got a lot of the contribution of your beautiful healing to the J juice, not just simply avoiding sugar and salt. Okay? Because if that were the case, everybody avoid sugar and salt would be beautiful, living indefinitely. But no, people that avoid sugar and salt are causing more of an imbalance because you need sugar. Sugar and carbs. But you need carbs and you need sugar. Okay? You need all that stuff. Well, whatever the case, Gloria, whatever the case, here's the thing. Simply avoiding sugar and carbs is not going to cause someone to have a major reversal. There is a lot more to that because what you're doing is you're putting out something that's not correct. Do you really want to demonize sugar and carbs? You need complex carbohydrates. Okay? You need to have sugar in all of your diet, but you have to have a specific balance of it. It's all about balance. Okay? Thanks, Roxy. Okay? Because right now we have people that have so much candida, so they're eating all of this sugar, whether it's fruit sugar or processed sugar or organic sugar, and or alcohol, and then they're feeding their candida with all that, and they're wondering why it is that they are not healing. Okay, so then what people do when they're like trying to do on the candida diet, oh well, they try to avoid all the sugar, and then they and try to avoid carbs, but they're not bringing in the other elements that are necessary, like the electrolytes, like the probiotic slash lactic acid slash lactobacillus. They're not bringing in the micro and macronutrition. And if they are bringing in the micro and macronutrition, it's actually going through their system, not being absorbed because not being broken down. The body's still mutated, so it can't absorb. It's not breaking it down. So then it's kind of moot. Okay? So simply just changing your diet and avoiding sugar and avoiding salts and all that stuff is not going to work. There is a very specific chemical process. That's fine, Gloria, but still, you have to, what you've put out about demonizing sugar and demonizing carbs is leading people down a path that is really part of the deception of the holistic allopathic. Because when you play the discrimination game by demonizing sugar and demonizing carbs, you're setting up your friends to fail. You seriously are, because we're only avoiding sugar and carbs in the beginning of J juice because we have people have candida imbalances, and then you're bringing in the J juice, which then is filling in the blanks and bringing up the electrolytes and the micro and macronutrition, so that way the body can finally strengthen the weaknesses that they have. Okay. And then down the road, they'll be able to have the carbs and the sugar regardless, and the GMO and the processed foods and the meat and the milk and everything that the holistic and allopathic world has demonized at such an exponential level. And so I get so annoyed with people who are part of the J-Juice crowd still play the demonization game, the discrimination game, the racism game. I don't say you guys are racist, but that's what discrimination is, when you demonize any element on the periodic tables. And it's more than just balance too, because you have to understand what you're balancing and why. Why are you trying to balance out your sugar? Why are you trying to balance out the carbs? Why are you trying to balance out the electrolytes? Why are you trying to balance out the micro and macronutrition? Why are you trying to balance out the salt and the water? It's just simply saying it's balance is like, okay, well, that's very subjective. You have to be specific. But pointing out elements on the periodic tables and demonizing them is not really correct. It still then, it still gets bought into the holistic and allopathic demonization discrimination game. And then the bigger picture, it's the divide and conquer. Okay? I mean, and so that's why you got to stay on the J juice. And I don't think you're part of my group. So I don't think you really, and I know you watch my videos and stuff like that, but you haven't really seen, or maybe you watched some, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much, Gloria, you're following me, but I know that some people that were part of my group from a long time ago haven't seen the new information that I have today, so they're not really caught up. So they're still buying into the old info that really isn't relevant anymore. It's like you got to get, update, you got to upgrade. You got to watch my latest videos. Do you realize I'm evolving faster than you're healing? Because I keep drinking the J juice and I'm not playing the discrimination game. And then I see that my mentality change, and I see my biochemistry change, the spirituality. And some people are still in the religious world, so they want to stay in that religion, which may be stopping them from getting to the spiritual healing, so they don't understand. So they still play into the discrimination, which I think you're a little bit religious. I think you have a God thing somewhere in the background. And I'm not trying to be, a smart ass, but I think that you do have something to do with like Yah or Jesus or something. No, it's fine, Gloria, but it's not that you're making me angry. I want to point out the things that I see that are a mistake in your world. And I think that you are bigger than playing that game of discrimination. And when people haven't reached the level of the spiritual healing, they'll still play into the discrimination. Because a lot of ways when we have religion or specific, spiritual backgrounds that are very, very resolute, it's translatable in the diets and the healing process, because you still play the discrimination game. You still play the divide and conquer, that nothing is really equal. You fall into the holistic world where the words are what separates, and not realizing that there is a balance and a combination of a bunch of different things. Yeah, I know you love the Lord. I know. And so I think that's what I see is the pattern. And so maybe, hopefully, you keep doing the J juice, that maybe in your third year, you'll still be spiritual. You'll still love the Lord, but you're not going to play the discrimination. You're going to see that everybody loves the Lord, because everybody loves the life. It's not just you that love the Lord. I love the Lord too, because I love life. And the way I characterize the spirit is biochemistry, it's hormones, it's the Lord, it's God, it's Jesus, it's Allah, it's whoever somebody deems as a icon in any religion or any spiritual belief system. Buddha, okay? And so when someone says Lord, Buddha, Allah, people think there's a difference when really there isn't. It's all about life. We're all about life, and we don't want to lead anybody down a death trajectory if we don't have to. And I don't like the discrimination game. Okay, there is a place for fluoride. There's a place for mercury. There's a place for all these different elements on the periodic tables. And when we demonize them, then and there's a place for sugar. There's a place for carbohydrates. There's a place for everything. But you have to understand when you come into something like the Jilly Juice, you are at a deficit of certain minerals. And so, yeah, you're going to have to play the discrimination game in the beginning. But when you finally reach a point where your physical healing finally, addresses most of your issues, and then you start seeing the mental clarity, you start seeing mentally your mind expanding. But you have to get through the physical first, really. Okay? And that's one of the hardest things people get through is the physical. Then they see the mental, and then the spiritual finally comes into play. And who's to say that you won't experience some kind of spiritual healing during the physical and the mental? Because when I first started the protocol, actually not first, it was it was around like the first 6 or 7, 8 months, 9 months, about the first year or so, I had dreams that came in and out that were really, really, really vivid. And I talked about my dreams. I talked about my dreams a while back. Okay? And those dreams were representative. They were representative of the biochemistry going through its fluctuations. And it was, I'd say oxytocin came to surface. Who knows? Adrenaline probably came to surface. And it manifests in the dreams, letting me know which hormone was most present at the time during my healing process. Okay? And so the spirit is really your biochemistry, in whatever state it is, in whatever state that it's in, based upon the physical. Okay? So that's why we have to stick with the J Juice protocol. No discrimination. Talk about the ingredients, because the ingredients are not kryptonite. You don't have to say Jilly Juice, Gloria, if that's going to be a trigger for people in your community. Okay? You can say cabbage, kale, water, and pink Himalayan salt, and then the lactic acid or lactic bacillus / probiotic. That's really what contributes to the deep healing process. Anybody can avoid sugar for a certain amount of time. Anybody can avoid carbs for a certain amount of time, get some superficial healing and say, oh yeah, I'm healed, I'm doing great. I know you've been on this protocol for, for a while, and simply avoiding sugar and carbs did not only contribute. And that's what I took offense to. Not that you meant to, okay? But this is what I'm saying. I see you guys, and I don't always want to see your posts, because it really would, some of you guys have posts that really conflict because you're not really following me, but you were part of my group from a while back, but you're not in my face either. So I don't worry about it. I don't sweat you. But it's those that are in my group that got the book, that are in my face, and then touting something totally different that I then finally block and remove from the group, because there's no sense in you being part of the group if you're still going to induce fear about GMO and about quote unquote chemicals and inducing fear and crazy conspiracies. I mean, even, somebody like Tanya. I love Tanya. Tanya, she loves me too. I know, and she loves what I'm doing, but she's still stuck in the conspiracy chemtrails. And she was honest, say, I'm going to defriend you, so that way you don't have to see my posts, but I can still see your posts. I know where you're coming from, but I'm still going to go and fight. And that's fine, because she was honest. The fact that she knows she's not going to get off the activism, but she doesn't want to trigger me because she's been in my face for a while. Very good, Kevin. Yes. She's been in my face for a while, but she still wants to do the chemtrail activism. Okay, that's her right. I'm not going to sweat her for that. But it's when you are part of my group and you're in my face and you're saying I love J Juice and da-da-da, and then you're doing something totally opposite. And that's where I'm like, okay, I don't like hypocrisy. And believe me, if I'm hypocritical about something, or if you find that if you think that there's something that I'm doing that is not aligning with what I'm saying, feel free to let me know or ask the question, whether send me an email or just say, how can, be really articulate and intellectual. Don't be attacking. But if there's something that you need to clarify, just something, and especially since I've had my information out for a while and I've gone through the research process for the last 3 years, you may be seeing information from like 2 years ago where I said one thing and now I've totally changed it because my biochemistry has been changing, so I'm able to change my mind. See, that's the beauty of J-Juice, is you have the ability to change your mind, change your belief system, change your course of action at any given moment. You're not stuck with what you were 10, 15 years ago. Okay, you have the power, the freedom to change based upon new information. That is amazing. And that is what people don't realize, the benefits of J-Juice, because they think they have to still stay stuck in who they were told to be 5 or 6 years ago. And no, you don't have to be. Okay, so I'm going to drink this because I'm all fired up. And no, Gloria, you're a beautiful person. I'm not getting on you as far as trying to tear you down or anything. But my biochemistry is forcing me to make sure you understand. And you don't have to change your post. I mean, I'm not trying to make you do anything that you don't want to do, that you didn't originally want to do to begin with. I'm just acknowledging that I saw it. And I can't not acknowledge it, especially since I know that I've gone over and I have to give people what I think is the right information. Whether or not you believe it or not, that's perfectly up to you. But it's one of those things where we don't want to give people the impression that they have to play the avoidance game to live in a bubble. No, that's awesome, Gloria. I get it. I don't want anybody to live in a bubble, to feel they have to avoid elements, okay? Because we need a mixture of them. It's just a matter of the type and when and balance. So I had a little bit of food today. I didn't have a lot. All had different types of minerals. I had hormones. So again, my food supply that I had today had hormones, fats, proteins, carbohydrates, sugars, and salts, which is minerals, and oxygen and water. Okay? So, and she said, that's true. Yes, I've been on J-Juice. This is what Gloria said. That's true. Yes, I've been on J-Juice for a long time. I was just merely remembering the beginning of my journey till now. I get it. But I think what it was the whole thing with the salt and the carbs. If you hadn't mentioned the salt and the carbs and the detox, because you may have had a protocol prior to J-Juice, but you didn't look the way you did now back then when you were doing the detoxes. You've done J-Juice since you've done your detoxes, since you've avoided the sugar and the carbs. So now when you have an actual outcome of today, J-Juice is right there. It's what contributed to your today's picture. So that needs to be a factor in your testimony. Okay? If you were back then, if you did a detox and you looked the way you did today by simply avoiding sugar and carbs, then that would have been a story from a long time ago. Wouldn't even be subject to today's address, or what I'm, talking about today. So the fact that you've been on the J juice for about 2 years says that J juice really contributed a lot to how beautiful you look. Okay, because you do look amazing, and it needs to be a factor, and then not to demonize the salt and the carbohydrates. And detoxes really are, detoxes are just poisons that people put in their body to try to purge out other poisons. It's kind of it's oxymoronic, I think. Right. Yeah, you were on something different back then. But if we cycle back then, I don't think you look the way you did today back then. You know what I mean? So I'm going to drink this, but I wanted to address that this is tap water that I put in my J juice. Okay? So here we go. Woo! It is very thick. Not bad. Not bad at all. It's just like I should have probably just like swished it around so it all, but that's okay. But when this happens, I'll just add water to it. And I have the tap water that's refrigerated, so it's fine and it'll be good. But whoo, that tastes amazing. If I actually feel amazing, guys, I'm telling you, I feel so after this last spiritual healing that I've been through. I'm telling you, I got another jump in my evolutionary expansion of consciousness. Okay? And if we get everybody in the world doing this, where they actually get to this spiritual healing, I can't even imagine how fast we can progress humanity. I mean, it'll be by leaps and bounds. It really will, by leaps and bounds. I can only do so much on my own, but when we all put forth the effort in not advising, but informing and educating our friends and our family about what it is that we're doing, when we actually put forth that effort about the J juice in a way that's not ramming the information down their throat, in a way that is simply informing the ingredients and why they're appropriate, because there's a specific formula. It's just jillyjuice.com. There's a link in there, Jacqueline. But there's a simple formula, okay, that is basically aligned to the human body that's in J juice. So hold on a second. So Jacqueline, just go to jillyjuice.com. JILLYJUICE.com. My book link is there, and they can get either the ebook or the paperback. Okay? So, but yeah, hold on a second. Let me see what else real quick. See more. No, is that it? Oh. We said, is it pass the link on, but they said they couldn't access it. Yeah. Can have a look at what you say as I pass the link. Well, I don't know it's jillyjuice.com. I mean, go to my information on just click on jillyjuice.com. But anyways, it's not the time to ask that question right now. So anyways, the formula to Jilly Juice, the formula to Jilly Juice is completely aligned with the elemental composition to the human body. And then you have the diet, which is a very temporary but very conservative diet, so you understand what it is that you're putting in your mouth. And then you're going to have the healing symptoms. And one of the biggest healing symptoms I discovered in the beginning, okay, was the loss of my water weight, and I shrunk my fat cells. That was probably the first thing that I noticed when I first started this protocol. And that's when I knew I was onto something, because I was doing all these different diets and I was doing all these different exercises, and I did not see how fast and how rapid that the water weight was taking off and the fat cells were shrinking. I was peeing a lot, And I wasn't doing a lot of the waterfalls because that wasn't what I discovered in the beginning. I discovered the waterfalls through the group because people were giving me feedback on what they were experiencing. And then I noticed the mental clarity. I noticed that my PMDD was not as prominent or as harsh. And I noticed a lot of different healing. And then I had to deal with all of the government, the trolls, the backlash, all of that. Okay? Thanks, Kevin. I had to deal with all of that. And so when you are going through fighting people and trying to get the information out and trying to heal at the same time, you're now putting yourself in the next level of healing because you're taking all this energy and all of the hormones from so many different people, and now you're trying to convert it. So you're bringing in these elements that are the micro and macronutrition, the lactic acid, which gets offset by the electrolytes, and you're getting the micro and macronutrition, and you're getting the minerals. Okay, you're going to convert whatever energy that gets thrown at you, and you're going to create something amazing. So every single time a person attacked me, I converted that energy into whatever the chemistry of my biochemistry was, and I created something that was awesome. Or I manifested. I didn't create it because you don't create something from a vacuum. We're not in a vacuum. I manifested an amazing outcome. I manifested at least the second book that's out there right now. The first book was like my original book that is not published because it was just my prototype, and that was a representation of how, in the beginning, how this protocol came to be was through the candida, and then I found that there was other factors that contribute to the death for the cancer, disease, and chronic illness. But I converted all of that energy into something that was going to not only help me, but ultimately help all of you. And so the more that I was being attacked, the more that I converted the energy. And so now instead of being attacked like on a hateful level, I was being attacked then later on the love level. And that even was an imbalance. When someone loves you so much and they totally overwhelm me with love, that becomes an imbalance. Then I have to convert that energy. Okay? So finally, I figured out what the imbalances, are, and that's the love, and the hate, and the indifference. And now we need to come from acknowledgement and then moving forward. So I don't hate you, Gloria. Do I love you? I love everybody when you think about it. Not in a love in a way where it's so intense, but I think all of humanity deserves to have the ability to live indefinitely with the right elements. Everybody has a chance. Everybody should have a chance for life. Okay? But I wanted to acknowledge what I saw, Gloria. Okay? And that's really where this whole transmission came from, is that I want to introduce people to the protocol, of course. And yeah, go waterfall, Gloria. But I wanted to also drink this because I'll show you that this is tap water. Okay? And tap water is nothing to be afraid of. And that the chemtrails are nothing to be afraid of. GMO is nothing to be afraid of. 5G is nothing to be afraid of. And that we have the ability to convert all the different energy and hormones that are coming at us to make it to where it's to our benefit as well as everybody else's benefit, and to prolong your life indefinitely, and to reverse potentially cancer, disease, and chronic illness. And yes, I'm getting laughed at by trolls through my email going like, oh, can you like regrow my amputee? Hey, if you're willing to go through the healing process and you're taking in my recipe and you're doing the protocol and you're willing to deal with the pain, then you know what? You tell me how your amputation, okay, Gloria, how your amputation is faring through this protocol. I would love somebody who has a missing digit, a missing arm, a missing leg, even a missing organ that they know of, and they're doing the protocol and they got an MRI and it shows that their organ that was taken out has grown back. I would love someone who was an amputee, either from the war or some accident, do the protocol, deal with the healing. And I can't tell you how long it's going to take for you to regrow your arm if you're missing an arm or missing a leg or missing a finger or whatever. But you might have to have other systems get addressed first before you regrow that digit, because the body is not going to deem it as a priority if there are other systems that take priority, that are more severely impacted by your imbalances. So you might not see the regrowing of your arm or your leg or your finger until 2 or 3 years down the road if you can handle the healing of your other 11 different systems. Okay? So that's why we're not going to see anybody talk about regrowing their arm or their digit if they can't even get through the other healing of their 10 other systems. Okay? So that's why we're seeing now people talk about their cancer being reversed, but just reversing the cancer is not enough, because cancer is really, it's a type of cancer. Cancer is a general term. It's a type of cancer. When you have breast cancer, there's specific viruses that are involved. When you have pancreatic cancer, there's specific viruses involved. When you have testicular cancer, when you have all these different cancers, it's a conglomeration of different viruses that you've been exposed to that are not necessarily bad, but you have a weak body, so it's going to be bad. You're not upgrading your device, which is you're not upgrading your body to be able to handle your environment. So every single time you're exposed to a virus, or you get a vaccine, which is the same thing as being exposed to a virus in the community, your body goes to an upset homeostasis to try to adapt to that new environment, and then you're not fixing that weakness, because yes, every time you upgrade to a new environment or you have an exposure to something new in the environment, the body then also has to upgrade itself at the same time. And if you're not giving your body what it needs, you will have all of this data and all this programming from viruses and vaccines that your body can't handle. And then guess what? You have major cancer. You have obesity. You have cancer disease, chronic illness, autoimmune disorders, as well as mental illness, because you have to upgrade your body to handle the information that's in your community. And if you can't handle the information in your environment or your community, you will end up like your predecessors, aging with cancer disease and chronic illness. Okay, my hair's falling out here. Okay? And so that's why I say that, you know what, we're seeing a lot, that's why you're seeing a lot more of the healing with the viruses and with the autoimmune disorders and with the cancers than you will see in anybody regrowing their limbs or their organs. I mean, you'll see people say that, yeah, I probably regrew my organ, but I haven't seen any substantiation where they had their thyroid removed and they're doing the protocol and then they got another CAT scan or another MRI or something where it shows them their thyroid growing back or grown back. I can't wait for someone to actually put that information out there if they're willing to. Not everybody wants to put that information out there because they don't want to be targeted by the crazy trolls on the internet. Some people would rather be anonymous, and it's perfectly understandable. They don't have the strength to be able to withstand some of the negative elements that are in our society. But you have to have a strong body to be able to withstand that. So hopefully down the road, when you do regrow those organs and you also reverse all of your illnesses and your different weaknesses, then you'll be able to come out down the road when you're strong enough and you have medical substantiation. And then you can say, yeah, I did this. So we're only 3 years into this. This is not a protocol that's been around for a long time. And believe me, people weren't trying to do the protocol back when I first rolled this out to regrow their arms. Some people couldn't even get past having the waterfalls. What makes you think that if you can't get past having the waterfalls, that you're going to regrow an arm or a leg or an organ or anything else? We got to get people to really feel comfortable enough to reverse their cancer and their disease and their chronic illness and their autoimmune disorders, and then reverse the aging process. I'm looking at my old high school crowd that went to a fundraiser for somebody that has pancreatic cancer. Some of them look like my mother. Some of them look just like my mother. My mother, she's in her 70s. Okay, but I have people that look like my mom when she was in her 60s. I'm like, oh my God. The aging of my age group is so freaking profound. The degradation of people in my age group is insane. And you see it's like I'm floored. I really am floored to see the people in my high school class. So anyways, this is what I want to offer all of you, that you have the chance to regrow and rebuild yourselves. And if you're not ready for the healing process, then you know what? Stay in the system. Live that predictable outcome. Live that predictable life. There's nothing wrong with it. People do. But if you're ready to really face the demons, face the healing process, facing the weaknesses, then check out my information. And those of you that are on the J Juice and have been on it for a while, there's no shame in the J Juice game. You don't have to mention J Juice. You can just say liquefied sauerkraut, like Kevin said, okay? And give people the opportunity to have this information. But don't promote avoiding sugar or avoiding carbs or avoiding fluoride or avoiding GMO or avoiding processed food. The only time that really that would be something that you would do is if you're on the J Juice and we are discriminating in the beginning because you're coming in at a deficit. When you come in at a deficit, you have to then balance out and bring in what you're missing, what you're lacking, and stay away from the things that are totally overabundant. You know, when you have obesity, you have hormonal imbalances based upon over mineralization of the wrong elements in your body. When you bring in the J Juice, you're going to see your obesity dwindle down to basically nothing. Because when you're obese, you're putting pressure on all of your organs, and then you're going to be triggering the diabetes and everything else. Okay? So it's a chain reaction when you have major imbalances. It's time to understand how it all works. And so electrolytes have been substantiated. Lactobacillus / probiotic / lactic acid has been substantiated. And here's one of the kickers about lactic acid. Too much lactic acid in the body attracts pestilence. So it attracts ticks, mosquitoes, fleas, all of that pestilence. And it also is the contributory factor of rigor mortis. It also builds up when your body is exercising so much that it goes into it produces a lot of lactic acid. So then what does the people do when they want to mitigate against lactic acid buildup when you are cramping from running? So they say get electrolytes. Okay? When you have too much lactic acid, which I think I've seen some of the drugs, their side effects is too much lactic acid. But if you look up how to offset lactic acid, it is the electrolytes and the water. Okay? So electrolytes and salt and water and all of that is a balancing force in the body that has imbalances. When you have too much candida, you need electrolytes. You need lactobacillus to offset the candida, the fungus. There are bacteria that are that offset other bacteria. Okay? So it's understanding the role of the different bacteria and why, because there's no bad bacteria. It's only bad on a system that is weak. Bacteria actually is good on strong bodies because it'll make you stronger. Not because you're symptomatic all the time. No, that makes you weaker if you're symptomatic. When you're exposed to viruses and bacteria on a strong body, you'll be asymptomatic and you will be very strong. You won't even know you're exposed to viruses until you see somebody sneezing around you and totally sick around you. That's the only way you know that viruses and bacteria are around you, is when you see somebody in your community sneezing and coughing and hacking and just saying, oh, I'm so sick, I'm so sick. My husband was sick last year and I was next to him. I was asymptomatic. It didn't affect me, but I knew that virus and that bacteria existed, but I was asymptomatic. My body was able to handle it. Any of that excess program from his virus, I was able to release with mucus because I blew my nose, or I peed and pooed it out. That's why you have a filtration process. So your body can get rid of the excess programming, and then you can keep upgrading your body with the right elements. And Gloria said, that's why I started realizing last month, my daughter told me I need to start reintroducing things. Well, my husband has been getting bitten a lot lately. Thanks for sharing that information. I can't get him to drink. Yeah, well, my husband is not really drinking the juice either, okay? He's getting bit too. He was out there, Gloria, hanging out with his friend, fixing a truck, and it's okay. And they were all getting bit over the weekend. They were out there, at dusk and at dawn or whatever during the day, and they were getting bit by mosquitoes all over the place. Me, I'm just like, I think I got bit once here in my backyard when we had a really major humid day because the storm's coming through. One time, that was the only time this whole summer I got bit. One time. Okay. So yeah, to offset too much lactic acid is electrolytes or the J juice. And then when you find that you're not getting bit hardly or at all, that you are getting your chemical process, your biochemistry balanced out. Because that's what mosquitoes are attracted to, is through a chemical being secreted by a human that has a lactic acid imbalance. Okay? And it's biblical too. So here's the thing, Gloria, since you are biblical, you understand that, the whole thing with Passover. So, the Passover could be the mosquitoes passing over people that are very balanced. They're not creating lactic acid, the chemical of lactic acid, because they're very balanced. So what they're saying is that the Jews were very balanced back then. I don't know. But that's kind of, the same thing, with the whole thing with the 10 plagues. Okay? So it's just something to know and to recognize, and you use these types of things, your environment, as indicators to kind of gauge where you are in the healing process, especially with J juice. But you have to really come from an elementary standpoint in the beginning to understand what makes up your body, what makes up cells, what makes up J juice, and then what has been substantiated in different contexts in academia, PubMed, and the allopathic holistic, and you finally bring it together. And that's where my book, which gives people sort of a little bit of my thought process that's out right now, but that was based upon last year's work. So there's a few things that I've changed. I'm not anti-vax anymore. I'm not going to be focusing on DNA methylation. So I think Kevin's going to basically cross that section out. Okay. Kevin has another take on the whole thing with Candida. Yeah, you need to have yeast, but when it becomes overabundant, but I don't really, but he said the same thing in a different way that I never really, I know that we need yeast, and it feeds on sugar and sugar substitutes, but why? He basically said, hey, it metabolizes sugar. Okay? But then you overfeed your yeast, it becomes then a fungus. So there's there's a balance to it all. But you have to understand these processes first. Okay? You really do. So yeah, in my book, I was anti-vax in my book, but I'm not anymore. I was talking about DNA methylation, but there's no point in that because that's all part of the immunotherapies that we're not really needing to focus on, because that's what they do in the allopathic holistic, is they do immunotherapy. But there's no reason for me to really mention how bad it is. It's just a matter of, I guess if he thinks it's appropriate, he can keep it in there. But if we want to spin this book in a different direction without going into so much detail, but I'll let Kevin figure out the creative process. If he thinks it's appropriate to put in why immunotherapies are not correct or right, then I'll let him figure that out. But I'm going to come from the formula standpoint. Okay, so that is, I have that formula up downstairs in my basement. I'm going to come from the mission statement, and then the actual order, the law and order, the order and life of the healing process of the body, mind, and spirit. So the mission statement and the body, mind, and spirit are actually reflections of each other. And that's what I did earlier today with my videos, is I merged those two together so you understand where I'm coming from. And then you saw the last 5 days of me healing spiritually from the love imbalances that are out there. Okay? Because love, and hate, and indifference is an imbalance. Acknowledgement and moving on is really the best way. And then also the J juice can be applied to animals. So animals will derive benefit, and they'll go through the healing process too. I can't tell you the dosages. You'll have to understand if you do the protocol yourself. But animals and all of biodiversity, your plants, awesome, Kevin. The plants, the animals, I wouldn't say fish. Fish have their own pH and all of their levels that you have to deal with. But, you think about the sea creatures, they live in massive amounts of salt and bacteria. So, that's already substantiated there as far as the salt in the water. But, yeah, your animals, your birds, I don't know, maybe reptiles, potentially, I guess. They already live a long time anyways. Especially turtles. Birds, yeah. I mean, your livestock, your farm animals, even the wild, but I don't know how you get the J juice in wild deer. So that's why they have a reproductive cycle. See, reproduction and eggs and sperm have a place because not everybody follows the laws of life. Life is how long life is, and life cycles are based upon the biochemistry and then what kind of food source is prevalent for the different biodiversity. So deer are not going to be making cabbage, water, and salt and fermenting it in jars. So they will have a specific life cycle, and their reproductive cycle is based upon the how the environment impacts them. The four seasons. Okay? So we understand that the four seasons is the representation of the different upsets of homeostasis that triggers life cycles. So when you look at fall being degradation and winter being death, and spring being regeneration and summer being life, well, that's part of the four seasons of animals that are living off the environment that don't really have logic, but are more primal. How would I say this? Instinct. Animals have instincts. Okay, humans have instincts too, but the extra thing about humans, which makes us way more special, that makes us special, more specialer, whatever, that makes us more advanced than the animals, the fact that we have logic and we have opposable thumbs. That's what makes us a higher species than the animals. Okay, is that the fact that we have logic and opposable thumbs. And when you apply logic, and we have the ability to, well, I mean, animals have the ability to learn too. I mean, Pavlov's, method, yes. But humans have a different power that they don't even realize they have. Because some people will then think that they are like an animal. It's all about instinct. But that, when you're living from your baser instincts, then you're just going to be thinking about food, sex, water, and shelter. And that's it. That's baser instincts. And violence and love and hate. That's baser instincts. We're now trying to evolve higher than the baser instinct. That's where Maslow's, self-actualization is, where you reach specific levels of development. And some people are still stuck at the bottom of Maslow's rungs. And some people are maybe one, rung higher than another person. But that's based upon you being able to process your environment correctly. Some people don't process their environment correctly and they're still stuck at the baser instinct. Some people have processed their environment and figured out and conquered their environment. And now they are at a point of self-actualization. Now, what does that translate to? Well, we have models in our society where we think success is making tons of money and having, big cars and big houses. But maybe self-actualization is where you finally conquered the death process and that you know how to produce just enough to consume. You're not over consuming more than you're producing. Maybe we need to change the paradigm of of what success is in our society. And it's not having all this money and traveling if you're not healing. What's the point of having all this money and traveling and doing all this stuff if you're not making time for the healing process? Very good. That's right, Kevin. We have a different consciousness because we can project into the future and plan things. Yeah. But I'm thinking that we need to characterize success in a different way. Now, if money happens to then go along with your self-actualization, then that's great. But that's not the focus. The focus of J Juice is not to go and accumulate all this wealth. Okay, that's not the focus of J Juice. The focus of J Juice is not trying to anesthetize yourself so you don't feel pain and you're always feeling pleasure. Okay, the focus of J Juice is to be able to live symbiotically with your environment without having any imbalances. So if you have all this money and all of this stuff, but you're not really prolonging your life or prolonging other people's lives, then you're not living symbiotically in your environment. You're just hoarding. See, there's hoarding in ways that are poor, where you're like, watching the TV and somebody is hoarding all of this garbage in their house and they have pestilence and they're really, really imbalanced and the family's so pissed off. That's the poor hoarding. Then there's the rich hoarding, where you have these big houses, empty houses with one or two people in it, and they have big bank accounts, but it's not doing anything for them really to prolong their life or prolong anybody else's life. So that's an imbalance in of itself. Right there is another revelation. We can have hoarding be on either end of the spectrum, when you're poor or when you're very rich. And poor means that you don't have a lot of resources and you're sick. And then when you're rich, you have so many resources, but you're not really prolonging your life, so you're hoarding. So hoarding is an imbalance. You realize that? So really, what is success? Success is not going after the almighty dollar. Success is being able to live symbiotically with your environment. That's what success is. See, that's another concept. And then you'll be able to have access to resources and know how to utilize your energy and your biochemistry to help somebody else, to help you, to help them, to help you, to help them. And it's a back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That's what symbiosis is. That's what relationships are all about. It's the back and forth. What are you doing to help them? What are they doing to help you? And back and forth and back and forth. And then when somebody is doing way more than the other person, then there's an imbalance. Okay? And then you have to characterize what does that mean? And then everybody has their own take on who does what, the division of labor or such, I guess. Then you got to discuss those things. But yeah, so just so you know, the rich are just as imbalanced as the poor that are hoarding. Now you can be poor with no money and be very, very rich in your endeavors, because you may not have a lot of money, but you know how to live symbiotically with your environment. Yes, Cindy, the rich is prolonging life and quality of life with the JJ. That's what being rich is. It's not hoarding money and saying, oh yeah, my bank account's bigger than yours, blah, 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 blah. No, that's not balance. That's imbalance. So yeah, that it took me about this whole transmission to get to that. That's interesting. So just try that on. All right, I'm going to go do my thing. I'm going to give my dog a little bit of this stuff in a cotton ball. And you guys just stay on the J juice, get through the physical, okay, get through the body, and then get through the mind, then you'll definitely tap into the spirit, and then hopefully you'll see where I'm coming from when it comes to the spirit. Because I'll tell you, the spirit, especially with different biochemistries, very insidious. And here's how you know when someone's imbalanced: when they're so full of love, empathic, or so full of hate, or they're totally indifferent. They're not giving you anything to work with. Okay? It's the ones that acknowledge and move on are the ones that you really want to follow and emulate. Acknowledge and move on. Acknowledge and move on. Don't live in those extreme imbalances. Those are the biochemistry imbalances. The love, and the hate, and the indifference. Okay. Talk to you later. Bye!